Hi, it's Gab and Dad, back with another review. This time we got to see an early screening of the anticipated holiday film, Sherlock Holmes.
You notice how a lot of people at the screening showed up wearing Sherlock Holmes' hats and pipes?
I did notice that.
Silly,
it was
eh?
not your
Maybe
normal,
normal
crowd.
Well, this is by Guy Ritchie. It's the story, or a story, about Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Sherlock Holmes played, perhaps rather unlikely casting in a way, by Robert Downey Jr. And Dr. Watson played by Jude Law. And it's, other than that, it's a traditional adventure, detective story. It's a widely recognized genre. What's different about this, of course, is that these two famous literary characters, also characters who have appeared in other films and on television series, are the central characters. And the central characters are young, playful, they have a kind of a bromance between the two of them. It's a buddy film to some extent.
They're buff.
They're buff, they're fit, they're agile, they're smart. Dr. Watson has a keen moustache. And they set out to track down and deal with an evil person who is sort of terrorizing London. And it's very atmospheric, it's 19th century, it's Victorian London, and all that sort of is conveyed, I think, pretty well by Guy Ritchie as director.
And the production design.
And the production design. Excellent production design.
Yeah, you basically summed it up, but I think a point needs to be made that some people might interpret this as a reimagining or reinvention.
No, they're incorrect if they say that, because if you actually go back and you read Arthur Conan Doyle, he depicts Watson and Holmes as very similar in some respects to the depiction in the film, and not in the way that some subsequent film and TV series have done it, plodding, dull, older, you know, lethargic to some degree, sort of like me.
The ones you more relate to, right?
The ones I relate
Well, that's a good point, because, I mean, speaking of the generational rift, or whatever you want to call it, this is, I mean, obviously, I resemble that remark. This is, although it's not a reimagining, it's true to the source material. Obviously, bringing Guy Ritchie on as the director is they're making something for more of the whiz-bang generation, such as mine.
Whiz-bang generation?
Well, yeah, I don't know what that is.
Do you remember the whiz?
I'd like to be. You know, the energy, the stylistic flourishes is more for the current movie-going popular film viewers.
Yeah, and I mean, and Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law are excellent in their roles.
Great casting,
yeah. Good casting. It's lots of fun. As I said before, I think it's kind of a bromance, buddy film. They've got great rapport.
But they're their own characters as well.
Yes, they are.
And
they
do them justice. And I think the script mostly does the characters justice. They've got some great lines,
I'm not sure I agree
a lot of quip. The characters. As for the rest of the plot,
there's some excellent lines in it. I mean, on several occasions, you and I turned to each other and kind of laughing, saying, great line.
Good line, yeah.
But there were also places, this might be my one criticism of the film, there were also places where I found the script quite plodding, and I got the sense once or twice that Jude Law and Robert Downey Jr. were thinking, oh God, how are we going to get through this? Let's make the best of a bad deal. But you may not agree.
I disagree with that. I think they were having lots of fun. And
also the end, I thought, was a bit laboured and contrived, not entirely convincing. But, you know, views can differ on that.
I think that it had a great energy, the whole momentum, even though it was too long. There was constantly, you know, things going on. The plot was convoluted, but
it's a detective,
it worked.
It's a mystery. It has
it didn't seem out of place, and it didn't seem insulting. You just had to go along for the ride, and Guy Ritchie really brought the energy. And for those slower moments or plotting points of the script, I think that was necessary as well, to have the in-between moments that sort of set you up for the next action set. And as for the finale, I thought that was a spectacular action scene. I loved it. And also the production design ties into that as well. I mean, I don't want to describe the scene.
Yes, it was good. Yeah.
But a lot of the action scenes, and there's some special effects obviously in play, are just really well integrated with the production design. I mean, I didn't live in London in the turn of the century.
I did.
At the turn of the century.
I did.
I knew it.
And it was I remember it all very well.
It has a really grimy, gritty look, and even Holmes himself is unshaven and unkempt.
Well, that's Robert Downey Jr. I mean,
well, they didn't need to. The wardrobe and makeup department didn't have to do much of him.
That's right. Just took him as he walked under the set.
It felt, even though it felt almost, it was a good meld of fantasy and realism. I felt it was a good, and I found it highly entertaining.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It met my expectations.
It was entertaining. It's a good kind of Christmas season film to go and see. What about kids?
No, I don't think it's a kid's film.
No,
I think
but could you take, say, Max, who's 7, could you take him?
I could take him. I don't think there's any material that would assault him, but I don't think he would be particularly engaged. But other than that, I think it has a broad appeal. It's a good date night action film.
Yeah, and of course, a couple of last things to say. At the end of this film, just a couple of last things. At the end of this film, it's obviously set up for the sequel.
Yeah.
There's at least one, maybe more coming. So that means perhaps in the next year or two, you'll be able to choose between Robert Downey as Sherlock Holmes, the famous 19th century detective, or as Iron Man, the futuristic, I don't know, flying, whatever the hell he is in that. And there's something interesting about Professor Moriarty. Professor Moriarty, who all Sherlock Holmes fans will know who that is, appears in this film, but you never see his face.
You don't know it's him until the end.
Yes, well, that's right, you don't.
That's a spoiler, I think.
Not really. He appears in this film, but you never see his face, but you may apparently see his face in the next one.
Well, I hope so,
and
because reportedly that face would be Brad Pitt. So I'm looking forward to a sequel for more than one reason.
So there you go.